Security Plus is so basic that a baby can take it and understand what like cyber is about. Because in Security Plus, you are taking a course that takes you on cyber itself. Then you can now take some GRC courses. This is why I say take courses, because when you take courses and you pay for these courses, it makes you serious. I don't believe that there's nothing you can't learn. Like, the biggest problem in learning things these days that we have is interest. Like, we have a big interest problem in our generation, because social media is calling for our time, movies are calling for our time, Netflix is calling for your time. If you imagine that same hours you are putting into all of those vices, you put it into work, you're going to have a great time. No matter whether you come from non-technical backgrounds. I always tell people, especially people who are coming from non-technical backgrounds, cybersecurity is that career for you.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to it, cyber heroes and cyber fans. Welcome to another episode where today we are thrilled to have an amazing and a remarkable guest. He is a cyber risk management and technology consultant with intensive experience in information security management, IT service management, business continuity management, and GRC. He has worked with top organizations in fintech and also in the financial institution, implementing critical IT standards like your ISO 27001 and PCI DSS. His expertise in vulnerability assessment and penetration testing and security audits, the list goes on. I can go on forever, but he is such an inspiration. He is an amazing figure for anyone inspiring to be in the cybersecurity field, especially in the GRC field. Ladies and gentlemen, the cyber heroes and cyber fans, please help me welcome Adeife. How are you doing, bro?
I'm good.
100%, man. Tell us a bit more about your background before you started off in cybersecurity. How did you get introduced to cybersecurity before you got into the field?
So earlier on, I had the bachelor's in electronic engineering. From electronic engineering, I went into so there's this compulsory like 1 year service year where you serve your country for 1 year before you now go into the like proper job market, right? So in that year, I was still confused about what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to do tech, but I knew I wasn't a fan of coding, right? And you can't study electrical engineering and work in electrical engineering in this country, like you're going to be poor. Right. So I would look for a way to get into tech, like get into something more diverse. At the same time, I was also trying to pursue my master's out of the country. Right. So with those two things like in line, finally got a role that was paying me so well, but it wasn't giving me skill. Right. So it was more like I was working in a role where I was doing customers IT support. Right. And we will talk about how we can transition from IT support into like a core technical skill later in the interview. But so from that role, it was outside the country, good salary. I mean, over like 2K bucks in dollars, and I felt so comfortable. I mean, I was in Nigeria, and I lost the job like 3 months after. And then I was like, okay, yes, I have money. Let me use it to actually now pursue a core tech skill. So I tried my hands in data analysis, right? And I mean, it got well. I was getting gigs here and there. I was interested. I was learning that, do my Excel, do my Power BI, all of that, right? So I felt I was going to pursue a career in data analysis, right? And so my next thing was to get into a big four company. And then, the big four, like KPMG, Deloitte, PwC, EY. So that was like my goal, to get into one of those companies as a data analyst, right? And so I did the entry level exams and I failed. But the person that I thought got in, I was like, geez. Then after that, I now remember that my friend told me to apply to Deloitte for a cyber role. It was like a cyber academy where they were going to train like a graduate training thing for cyber.
Yeah.
And since I had no passion for cyber, I did not, nothing cyber coming to my head. So, and due to my loss, I was like, okay, let me go and try this out, right? So I applied and I probably won't apply on the deadline because that thing has been in my inbox for long. The application form has been in my inbox for long, and I was just keeping it calm because I wanted to do data analysis, right? So I got in, gracefully did two interviews, got in, and I mean the journey has begun since then. It has been beautiful, especially when you're working in a top organization like Deloitte, right? The experience, the kind of the clients you work with, the exposure like was is crazy, right? And because I did not just do GRC, right? And that's why I see like I have also like cyber technical experience, so I can do both governance, risks and compliance. I can do VAPT, which is vulnerability assessment and penetration testing. At the same time, I worked in a SOC for a bit, so I can do both like blue team, red team, and the governance part of cyber. So like I'm like a all round cyber person. But again, further along, we'll still talk about how I finally stayed back in GRC. But that's just how I got in cybersecurity.
Very interesting. So you started off first in a technical background, and then you jumped off now to work in a much more non-technical background. Because I know technical is more stressful than non-technical. Let's talk more about, as you said, you were not interested in getting into cybersecurity, and you end up getting into cybersecurity. What was the first role that you jumped into when you first got into cybersecurity?
So I mean, the beautiful thing about just getting into cybersecurity is that I really loved cybersecurity when I got in, right? I felt like a clean slate. So I remember like a month before then, or like a few months before then, I was talking to my friend who was working at the bank in cybersecurity about, tell me about cybersecurity. And it was like, oh, go and take Professor Messa's course in Security Plus. I was like, I did like one or two courses and I was bored. And the honest truth is, no matter how, and that's why I tell people, no matter how much you are learning, watching videos, nothing beats having like real life scenario. So videos could not garner me interest into cybersecurity, but a job in cybersecurity was able to boost my love for the field. Do you understand? So, getting into cybersecurity, I mean, the first thing I did was the first role I did was so in the academy, and that's why I tell people, especially if you're in Nigeria and watching this, right? Whenever Deloitte pulls out their cyber academy, apply. That thing can change your life, right? Because I've gone from being a academy associate, now I'm a senior consultant at another big four. Do you get so like your life can just drastically change in no time, right? So, and I've seen people who have gone right from there to start. I mean, people from the academy are now outside the country, working in either doing their masters in top schools or now working in top organizations. I see people already earning like crazy six figures just from the academy. So the idea is that academy was what exposed me. And so after the academy, they would run a roster for like a year where you go through from VAPT to GRC to SOC in any other, right? So as God helped me, like my manager took me first to VAPT, which was super cool, right? I was testing web apps, testing mobile apps. I was doing internal penetration testing using tools like Nexus, Bob Suit, um, like a whole lot of tools, right? Did a lot of Metasploit. Like it was just really amazing working in Red Team. I worked there for like 6 months, right? And after that 6 months in January, I was taken to the Blue Team, right? And for me, I was like, well, Blue Team was not bad, right? I mean, but you work as a level one analyst. Most times, if you are working in the SOC, you are going to have to do shifts. You're going to have to run shifts. You're going to do a lot of incident response. You're going to do a lot of threat intelligence. You're going to try to do a lot of threat hunting, trying to see what's the root cause of an incident. Trying to so all of that was really cool, right? It was really super cool, and I enjoyed a whole lot of it, right? And for me, it was just like the beginning of like things that were to come, right? So at the point I was weighing it, will I go back to the red team or blue team, which was, and I enjoyed working blue team because of the kind of clients we had. They were top clients, so you always had work to do. You were never less busy. And also in the red team, I was visiting client side. In the blue team, I wasn't. I was just in the SOC room, right? So they call it the Cyber Intelligence Center, CTI, CTC, sorry, Cyber CIC. They call it the KIC, the Cyber Intelligence Center. You are there 24/7. Like sometimes if you're running like a night shift, but it's stressful, right? Because if you're running a shift for like 9 hours, 10 hours, 11 hours, at the point you get tired. You get so it was just super crazy for me. Then after that, I got bored. And I was saying, okay, I want to go to the next last unit. Not because I did not like that role, but it was a lot of shifts. So imagine you're doing 4 night shifts back to back to back to back.
Yeah,
Then
it's repeating work. Yeah, I've seen it
exactly.
myself.
So day shifts were cool for me, yeah, because day shift I come by 8, I leave by 6 p.m. Night shift I start by 6 p.m. and until 8 in the morning I'm still there. So that was crazy for me. 12 hours straight up, and I was like, there was a particular day I'll never forget. I did because I wanted to go somewhere, and also because I'm a super religious. Not just I love my church, right? I love to go to church, right? So and I don't think like when it comes to work and church, like work has any priority over me going to church, right? So and in one of those shifts, sometimes I have to do shifts on Sundays. So I end up sometimes having to go to my shift, like go to church from shift. If I do like a Saturday night shift, I will have to go to church that same night, that same morning. Sorry. So you see me jumping from work by 8 a.m. to ensure that I meet up with the 10 a.m. service in church. Then after that, I'm coming back in the evening to do another night shift. It was a crazy experience, and I never even missed church for once all throughout that 4 5 months I was in that place. Then finally, I was not transferred to GRC. Oh, in GRC was a crazy game because I was coming from a place where I've been doing technical stuff for a year, and I'm now in a non-technical place. And trust me, the non-technical thing can be boring if you're a technical person. If you're used to breaking into stuff, front entering into the system, using the software to crack this password. Like if you're used to that high level cyber work, and you're not getting to the place where all you're doing implementing standards, um, looking at what you can do, like just writing policies, looking at procedures, looking at guidelines. If you just get to that part of cyber, you'll be like, oh. So I struggled with it a lot. I'm not going to lie, especially because I wasn't a fan of Word. Then you have to use tools like Word. Use a lot of Excel. Use a lot of all those tools. So I got bored. I got super bored. Right. So the first 2 months I was just there. The projects that was there, I was just supporting them, doing a lot of things. I was struggling with my slides. I was struggling with a lot of stuff. Right. At a point, I was just like, oh God, I think I need to go back to the SOC, or I don't mind going back to my shifts or going back to red team. Then we now got a big project in August. So normally I was supposed to go back in September, right? So I was supposed to go back in August, September. Then we now got a big project in August that did not end till this year, March, from last year. So all throughout that project, I was handling clients out of Nigeria. I wasn't handling Nigerian clients. So at the point, my housemate was always laughing at me that I was always speaking with French countries, because when I'm speaking to clients in French countries and they don't understand English, I have to use a translator. Sometimes I will joke with them in French, they will not get it. Sometimes they'll speak French to me. Like it was a crazy experience. I was writing my reports in French. I was doing gap assessment in French. It was crazy for me, right? I was almost losing my mind.
Yeah,
Then
man. I mean, your experience was it was like really, really out there, man.
so at the point I was the only thing so at the point the first 2 projects I did in JRC, I was not serious about it. But this project put us on the point where you had no option but to be serious in the project, even if you don't like it. So I was serious in the project, and I was having my hopes that we'll go back to wherever, the red team or the blue team, right? Then fast forward, we had the project, we're done with the project. Oh, even in the middle of the project, we're not done with the project. In the middle of the project, I went to see my associate director. So in Big Four, there's something called associate director. I went to see her, and I was like, "Oh, mom, I think I'm done here. I'm not enjoying it." I want out. I want to go back to. She said, "Where do you want to go back to?" I said, "I want to go back to red team." Right. And so, because red team is something I love, like having to look at APIs, look at just you just be playing with a lot of things. Like you're testing this application, you're testing this web app, you're telling developers to go and fix their bug.
Let's talk more about the GRC part of things because I think that's where I'm
Yeah.
more interested about. It's more interesting. In terms of GRC, for most people who don't know what GRC is, obviously it's government risk compliance. What is that you do on the day to day, like on a GRC perspective? What are your duties, and yeah, what is your responsibilities?
So it depends on where you work, right? So, like I said, I told her I wanted to go out of GRC, and she agreed. And so one of my colleagues were supposed to swap. She also wanted to come back to GRC. Me, I wanted to go out of GRC. And then she was like, "Oh, no problem." But 2 weeks down the line, when the swap was supposed to happen, she said she was not going again. And I already wrote it. So that was when they now gave me two more bigger projects to undo for the next 4 months. Remember, I said the long project. And that was, I was implementing ISO 27001 for two top banks, right? And so these are big banks. So it was crazy. At that level, I could not go out again. So you know what? So in December, they told me I was going to leave in November. Then they gave me those two projects that was going to keep me till February. So I just went and I told my manager that, okay, you know what? I'm not leaving again. I'm going to stay in this GRC. I'm going to know this GRC and I'm going to kill it here. I told him straight up, right? I mean, they felt somehow. They said, the people that didn't want me to leave before were not like, hey, but wanted you to leave. I said, no, you have done your worst. I spent over 7 months here. If I leave here without knowing anything, it's my fault, not your fault, right? So I rather I stay here and I grow here. So my day to day in general, I now became serious about it. So it depends on the kind of work you have to do at that point. So if it's a ISO 27001, right, which is a core standard, international standard that all banks, all organizations try to certify themselves towards, right? Or sometimes it can be like a governance. You're doing cybersecurity governance. You're trying to bring out the cybersecurity strategy, right? Or sometimes it might be like you're doing risk assessment, or you can also be that you're implementing PCI DSS framework, right? So most of the time, my day to day is just I get to the office, I have which project I'm working on, right? So when I know the project I'm working on, what part of the project am I supposed to be doing right now? Is the part of gap assessment? Because in governance, you can't run away from doing gap assessments because that's what will make you go from where they are right now, their current state to the desired state, right? And that's one of the like I really love gap assessments on a good day because when I did not like GRC, I used to sleep in meetings. I used to be very tired in meetings. I would sleep because GRC sometimes can be boring, especially when you're not the one doing the talking. If you are just like a support on the project, you can be tired. And as a support, you're the one that is taking notes. So 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 it's just crazy. So at that point, I was handling projects at that point. Then I took time to understand how to carry out risk assessment properly. I understood how to carry out risk assessment properly. So my day to day was now like I was kind of gap assessment. So when you carry out gap assessment, you're interviewing different units, you're trying to know where they are. After that, you now go and look at a point where you would now at that point you're not trying to remediate. So remediation is you're trying to fix up the gaps that you have understood. So your work as a governance risk and compliance officer is, or analyst or consultant is you are looking out for gaps one in projects, right? Then when you look out for the gaps, it's your work to remediate those gaps. So you're working closely with them to remediate those gaps. Remediating those gaps, it might involve you fixing the asset inventory. It might involve you carrying out a risk assessment. Sometimes it might involve you even doing awareness where they have not done their proper awareness, right? And awareness can be a lot of things, right? Awareness can be a lot of things. It can be as simple as you carrying out a asset-based awareness, ISO champions awareness. Like it's just a whole lot, right? So what I always just do is just have a timetable, a calendar for what I want to do and how I want to do it. That just makes my work easy because there's a whole lot to do. And if you work in a big four, work doesn't finish.
100%. Yeah, and so for someone, if somebody wants to jump into GRC, what do you think they should start? And what certifications do you think are important to have?
So to get into GRC, like the first thing I always tell people to do is first, you cannot govern what you don't know about. Because whether I like it or not, one of the super things I have loved about GRC is that when you get into GRC, you will understand the business of cyber. Beyond just being a cyber analyst or cyber consultant, you want to grow your earnings. You want to get to a point where you are a CISO. You want to go to a point where you are a top manager, or you want to get to a point where you are a team lead of a large team, right? So to get to that point, you cannot just rely on just knowing JRC, right? So I say so that's why I say like you cannot govern what you have not understood, right? So and in not governing what you have not understood, I always say first you have to take a course that gives you a full understanding of cybersecurity in its full light. So like so you and that's if it was one of my tweets, one of my link, I would send you the link so I could drop it in the description for this link. I did a 120-day plan. I saw it somewhere, so I posted it, a 120-day plan for you to join, for you to grow in GRC in 120 days, right? The first thing is for you to take a course that gives you a background foundation of the entire thing called cybersecurity. So in that you are not just seeing cybersecurity from a governance perspective, you are seeing it from every angle, right? And Security Plus is that course. Like it's never going to go in vogue. Like Security Plus is that course. Yeah, there's IC Square. Yeah, it's a basic certification. You can grab that, right? But even if you're not writing the exam, take the Security Plus course. Dr. Mesa's videos are available for you on YouTube. Take them. If you can take them and understand them perfectly, or take your notes, understand them, then you are good to go. You have understood so at that point you can now say, yes, I want to specialize in GRC. Then you can now take IC squared CGRC, right? You can take that exam or take that course, right? That gives you fuller, broader perspective of of cyber. But remember that governance is about governance, right? And governance now has to do with frameworks, right? Remember that in they'll tell you something in cyber, they say you have framework, you have standards, you have policies, you have procedures, right? Then you have, I think there's one more, I've forgotten that one right now. So if you have those things, those are the things you're going to be working around inside in GRC a lot. You're going to be working against frameworks, standards, policies, procedures, guidelines. Do you get? So if you're going to be working around those five things, your best bet is to understand those things. So
Mm.
after you have taken the CGRC course, you can now learn a standard. As my boss will tell me at work, my former boss will tell me at Deloitte, you say, as a GRC person, you must understand at least 3 standards perfectly, and then you can implement. And out of those 3 standards, in your first 2 years, the first standard you must understand is ISO 27001. Like there's no brainer. You must understand it. The second standard you must understand is the BCMS, Business Continuity Management System, right? There's no brainer about that. PCI DSS is high level. If we have to be honest with ourselves, PCI DSS is high level because it's like a technical GRC standard where almost everything in the implementation is technical. So you're looking at the network diagram, you're saying, okay, walk me through the network diagram, walk me through walk me through how you store your data, how you store your customer data, how you store your sensitive authentication data, how you store card holder data. Like at that point, you're looking into systems, core systems. So if you don't understand ISOs, you can't easily do your PCIs. I'm not saying I'm not saying that there are people who can do PCI that don't understand ISO, but to take a lot of exertion, you have to learn more. Because, for instance, PCI requirement 12 speaks in information security policies. If you have done ISMS, when you have worked with a lot of policies, that will not be difficult for you to audit or implement. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So there are those levels of understanding that all these standards are intertwined. So, like I said, the first thing, take your Security Plus, understand it well. You don't have to take the exam. I mean, taking the exam puts you on your toe where you are reading more, but watch the videos, understand it. From there, you can go to CGRC, understand the CGRC well, or you can go into standards at that point, understand like one or two standards and master them well. Don't take your time. There's still lots of them. Don't rush it. Understand it well, right? Especially if you don't work in a company where you are implementing projects that have to do those standards, you can just chill and take your time to understand those standards well. Then from there, you can now, third, fourth year, you can now go high level, PCI.
Yeah.
But at every point, your goal must be, how can I earn more? How can I get better? Then in your third, fourth year, you can now start to take CSIM, you can take the CISM, then, or you can even take a CISA if you want to become an auditor. Then your fifth, sixth year, CISSP. That's
Now,
like,
now I hear you that now this is all very interesting because obviously from the background to this to obviously building the skills as well and understanding the fundamentals and all that. I think what's now important is that okay, I've gotten the foundation, I've gotten the education. Now, what happens if, for example, I want to build a project for me to be able to present this to recruiters? How do I go about building a project? Where should I go and how do I start?
so the thing about GRC projects is they are not individual. Most times they are not individual projects. So you will barely see someone who has done a GRC project individually, because most of the time it requires collaboration with either the client that wants the problem to be solved, or there are some GRC labs. I mean, Aaron Large has some, but like most of these times the projects are effective when you actually worked in an environment that allowed you solve that particular problem. So like currently I'm currently taking a class. I'll finish it today on the ISO part. I taught them ISO 27001 from the beginning to the end, right? I took my time with them. I explained it every Saturday for them. Like that was how much in depth I went with them. And in the class, in front of the class, we did a case study where we imagined a bank and we're implementing ISO for that bank, right? So in that case study, you can have that case study as part of the project that I've done. You get you can say, oh, I've implemented an ISO for as a case study. This. And because in part of the project we did asset inventories, we did risk assessment, right? We did risk assessment, we did risk treatment. So all of that, like so you can automatically say you know how to carry out risk assessment because you have done a case study risk assessment. Do you get? So most of those things are things you can, and guess what? It wasn't like an individual project, it was a team of all of us in that cohort. Do you get? So most of the time, like I say, like it's easier when you are working with a team to build your case. I did not know how much I had grown until I looked back and I made my CV for the first time this year. And when I made myself, I was like, wow. And if I do my CV now, between in 3 months, I've added a lot of skills. Taking a PCI course, got the certifications. So like at every point, you're adding a skill on those particular projects. For instance, if someone says, "Oh, I have taken," because when you take your ISO 27001 course, you're expected to take the lead implementer course, right? So if you take the lead implementer course, you can add it to your portfolio. You get so automatically I say, "Oh, this person has done this," right? So I ask people to look for GRC communities. Look for I'm hoping before the end of the year I will start building my GRC community. I'm hoping I build the GRC community for the end of the year. Just that I'm looking at how much burden to be with work and also managing a community, right? So the people to look out for communities, like places where you'll be taught GRC well, and where you can have a community of people who are learning and doing GRC together. So you can always have projects that you work on together. Because most times what people are looking for is who can do my risk assessment for me, who can do, and a lot of people don't know these things, right? And if you work in a big four, you're going to do more. You're going to do COBITs, you're going to do ITIL, you're going to do more than just, you're going to do 20,000, which is ITSMS. So you're going to do BCMS. So at that point, your portfolio is stacked.
100%. That makes sense. So, what would you advise for somebody right now who's saying, okay, I'm interested in jumping onto GRC? GRC seems like a very interesting role. I don't come from an IT background. I have no IT experience. Obviously, from what you said and what you picked up, and this person was like, okay, I want to go study GRC from particularly from scratch and knowing and coming from a non-technical background. What advice would you give to such a person who's sitting at home right now, whether they're in Nigeria, whether they're in Congo, whether they're in South Africa, or whether they're in the US, and they were like, "Hey man, you've really inspired me in this, but I want to jump in now in GRC. I don't know where to start. Are there any websites you can refer people to, or and stuff like that?"
So I think, like I'll still say, it's the first thing to boil down to you taking your security plus. Security plus is so basic that a baby can take it and understand what like cyber is about, right? Because in security plus, you are taking a course that takes you on cyber itself. Then you can now take some GRC courses. The reason why I say take courses is because when you take courses and you pay for these courses, it makes you serious. When you want to watch YouTube videos, some people just watch YouTube, if you like, you fall out. Sometimes you not take it seriously. But when I say take courses, you are taking courses because you are paying for it. So you are more serious about it. You are like, okay, I paid for this and I must learn it, right? And I don't believe that there's nothing you can't learn. Like, the biggest problem in learning things these days that we have is interest. Like, we have a big interest problem in our generation because social media is calling for our time. Movies are calling for our time. Netflix is calling for your time. If you imagine that same hours you are putting to those all of those vices, you put it into work, into fueling your interest, you're going to have a great time. You're going to have, like, you're going to see massive growth, right? So for me, no matter whether you come from non-technical backgrounds, I always tell people, especially people who are coming from non-technical backgrounds, cybersecurity is that career for you because you get the opportunity to work in the non-technical part of cyber. You can even go into the technical part of cyber and you will get it because there are always templates for you. You're not the first person that's going to build a lab. Someone will have build a lab and it will have the steps of step 1, step 2, step 3. You'll be able to follow those steps one after the other and get your work done. You get so the same way for GRC, right? And one thing I've improved personally, I've improved over the last 3 months is my research. Like, I have gotten so good at research. So no matter what material, I know where to get them. I know how to search. So if you get into that level, no matter what how basic your questions are, right, you can always get into it. Another thing I advise people to do is register for boot camps,
Mhm.
especially those paid ones. If they are people that have shown that they have a good track record, if you register for these paid boot camps and you are there in those paid boot camps, you are going to grow because they're going to teach you what stuff you want to do, right? So no matter, like, just cybersecurity is that career for you, whether you're in technical or non-technical side of cyber of life, right? You can grow. You just need to take those courses that I've recommended before. All those courses are courses you can take and can grow your interest in cyber.
100%, man. Really appreciate that, man. And your last words and advice as well for people at home, and where can people find you in terms of if, for example, they want to follow you and follow more and ask you more questions.
I mean, my LinkedIn is always open. I try to post every day. I try to post every day on LinkedIn. I try to drop a material, drop a course, drop this, drop that, because I believe that in cybersecurity, nobody's an island of knowledge, right? And on LinkedIn, just like my name, you will always find me on LinkedIn. I'm always available. If you send me a message, I will try my best to reply, and we can always schedule a
Or
call.
you reply in 5 seconds. People should know that. You reply very quickly.
Yeah, so I try to reply as early as I can, right? And more importantly, I'm also trying to set up a Calendly link so that people can always book time and talk to me about cyber. Do you
100%,
get?
man.
So you can book your time. We'll talk about cyber. I can walk you through the ropes of how to get into cyber.
100%, man. Really appreciate your time. Thank you so much, man, for making time. And I really appreciate all the insights and all the information that you were able to share with us.